Dude, this video sucks. Stop the drama and all this other crap. Show what you want to show that we want to see and let it go at that. Love, Richard. Okay, I can do that. I can definitely do that. Hang on a sec.
Sorry to disappoint you all, you ungrateful fucks.
Was that concise enough for you, Richard? Awesome. Now we're going to jump into some really useful information, and I'm going to talk for about half an hour. I hope you enjoy. In Sea Power, your mission is to dominate the waves using the most advanced strategies and technologies. Today, we're diving into the art of vessel identification and electronic warfare, key skills that will tip the scales of battle in your favor. We'll cover how to identify ships using visual methods, acoustic detection, both passive and active sonar, radar, and electronic warfare. Plus, we'll give you tips to gather critical intelligence and exploit it to gain a tactical edge as commander of your task force. In the real world, all of these topics are super complicated and very in-depth, and they take years to master. Some people spend their entire careers learning the art. In the game, it is simplified to a degree, and I'm sure there are experts out there amongst you who have real-world experience, and if that's the case, feel free to give us some advice down below, because we want to build a community where we're all enjoying this game to its maximum potential. And if you know how tactics work, then you can also participate in creating some engaging missions yourself using the editor. So let's get started. I'm Commander Tyrael. Leave me a like and a subscription if you want to be part of this community. And fair warning, if you have an attitude, please leave it at the door. I am an Australian, and Australians famously don't care what you think. Like the human body has 5 senses, warships in Sea Power also have sensors that they can use to identify their surroundings and the things inside those surroundings. Like humans, or because the ship is full of humans, vision is the most simple and readily available sensor aboard a ship. A target is visually ID'd when it comes into range of human sight, which is about 3 miles at sea level, before you are affected by the curvature of the Earth and the horizon. The higher the observer is placed, the further they can see. This method is greatly affected by sea state, weather conditions, and time of day. Optics like stereoscopic rangefinders, night vision, or infrared can extend this range or negate some of the environmental conditions. Visual identification provides fast target ID time, though it is affected by distance and the aforementioned environmental factors. Examples of this are a person situated in the crow's nest is able to see smoke emitted by ships for some distance, sometimes over the horizon, but they will still need to close distance to accurately ID what the target is. Acquiring the ID of a target is based on visual cues, like the shape of the superstructure, the number of funnels, turret placement, or any other distinguishing features. As well as measuring the target's length and comparing these to known vessels, with practice and study, a ship spotter can ID a target with a great degree of accuracy. This has been the primary method for as long as war on the sea has existed. Generally, on the open sea though, if you can see them, they can see you. And if the enemy can see you, they can shoot you. And so this is why navies started to implement air power as soon as it was able to be launched from a ship. You're able to extend your vision range and elevate it quite some deal, and be able to extend your ability to detect danger and stay informed on the high seas. The use of spotting planes makes them a surrogate target and takes the threat away from the main body of the fleet, and it should still be your main form of visual identification, unless you have small patrol boats that you are willing to throw into the direct line of fire. Being able to identify a ship's type, class, and capability at first glance is invaluable, and that is why I focused on that topic for the first few videos that I featured Sea Power. If you haven't seen them, I've looked through every single navy US, Soviet, and all the regional navies, and we've focused on what the ships look like and what they're capable of. I recommend checking that out because that'll be your best guide, and that is my totally unbiased opinion. Next up we have acoustics, passive. In the 15th century, Leonardo da Vinci noted that sound could travel underwater and be heard from quite some distance. In the 19th century, Daniel Colladon and Charles Sturm conducted experiments to measure the speed of sound in water, and it was discovered to travel at approximately 1500 meters per second, depending on pressure and temperature, which is much faster than air. Through the course of study, it was discovered that sound can become trapped between the thermal layers of the oceans and channeled long distances through something called the deep sound channel. A series of hydrophones placed strategically would be able to listen to the ocean and determine where events were happening by recording the direction of the sound and the time that each hydrophone heard the event, thereby being able to triangulate a position. As we continued to listen throughout the years, we were able to build up sound profiles, which allow experienced operators to correlate what they have heard with these profiles, allowing them then to identify targets accurately and to then estimate speed, size, course of vessel as it moved across the surface or underneath it. Eventually, hydrophones would become so good that we can now detect propulsion type on a vessel, as well as the number of props, or we can even ID a ship type simply by the sound of the bubbles popping behind it. Pretty intense, right? That's called cavitation. Passive detection is incredibly effective and safe for the user, but it is limited by a number of factors, such as the depth of the listening device, sea state, ocean temperature, running speed of the vessel listening, as well as local ambient noise from nearby vessels, and combat. Advanced systems are able to filter this ambient noise to some degree, and some aircraft and helis have onboard dipping sonar or airdrop sonar buoys. These extend the range of your acoustic surveillance without risking your surface assets, like we mentioned in the visual category. You should always try to project your listening ability away from your ships. Each of these topics is going to increase in complexity, but I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible, just so you have a basic outline. Acoustics, but active. By World War I, the advent of the submarine led to the development of sonar, known as sonic, navigation, and ranging. In much the same way as whales use echolocation to find food, a vessel can actively send out pulses of sound energy and listen to the resulting reply as sound bounces off the object. Sonar can be used to map the ocean floor, detect objects underwater, or even find schools of fish in the civilian sector. In the military, you can find submarines and destroy them. Active sonar, though, is like screaming in a dark forest and listening for your echo. It might help you find something out there, but it also lets anyone listening know that you're there. Like passive detection, active systems are limited by environmental factors, such as temperature, and also by the thermocline, where water density starts to change with temperature and pressure. This layer can form a protective bubble, so to speak, which may cause a ping of sound energy traveling through it to lose intensity. This can affect both projection and the return on any signal. The flip side is that sound, especially low frequency sound, can travel vast distances in this layer, the previously mentioned deep sound channel. During World War II, submarines and U-boats that could reach a thermal layer might be safe from active sonar pings, or at least easy to hide. But since the advent of things like dipping sonar and variable depth sonar, where a towed device goes down as deep as it needs to send out that active or passive sonar detection, it's made the layer less relevant than it might have otherwise been. And apparently, as the ocean heats up, it's becoming less effective, and that submarines will apparently become less stealthy due to the way that sound travels. My only advice is that if you have to use active sonar pings, something's gone horribly wrong. If you can hear active sonar pings, something's gone horribly wrong. If there's lots of active sonar pings, something's probably really, really wrong, and you have lots of torpedoes with active sonar homing coming for you. But of course, like all lessons, it will be learned the hard way or the easy way. Let's choose the easy way and move on to radar systems. Radar is a highly complex topic and probably the most important tool for any modern naval operation, and arguably one of the most important discoveries. Like, radar is used literally everywhere these days. Nearly every device is capable of transmitting some kind of signal on a radio wave. It comes in a variety of types, all with different strengths and weaknesses, but I'll try to simplify it as much as possible as relevant to sea power. Similar in concept to sonar, but also affected by some of the same factors that limit vision. Radar technology is used heavily in military applications. Ground-based radar is used for long-range threat detection and air traffic control. Ship-based radar provides surface-to-surface and surface-to-air observation. Airborne radar is utilized for threat detection, surveillance, mapping, altitude determination, and finally, missile radars are used for tracking and guidance, and I've probably forgotten something. Radar projects radio waves, which reflect off objects and are returned to the receiver, much like sonar. This receiver can be integrated into the system, fitted separately somewhere else on the ship, or in a completely different location, such as on a different vessel, aircraft, or land-based facility. Depending on the frequency of the wave, different information can be gleaned from the return, with each frequency being better for some tasks than others. The most commonly used bands, or frequency, used today for radar are the L band through to the Ku band, or 1 to 18 GHz. Radar systems suffer from very large signal path losses. The round-trip distance is twice that of a typical communications link, and there are losses associated with the radar cross-section of the target and its reflectivity. Warships may be fitted with a variety of radar types to overcome deficiencies and provide better resolution and tracking or perform other duties specifically. Sea Power's radar bands do follow real life, and here are the ones included that I've found. We have the VHF band, or the very high frequency. These were the first radar sets developed, before and during World War II. Later on, they were used for early warning radars, now known as over-the-horizon radars. These radars cannot meet high accuracy requirements and are simply there to tell you something's coming. It is affected by weather somewhat, but its range is unprecedented, using a variety of atmospheric anomalies, but we won't go into that. Radar on the UHF, or ultra-high frequency band, is a frequency that contains specialized sets that are used as military early warning radars, ground penetrating radars, or for weather observation, and it's not as affected by the weather as VHF. The L band, coming into the start of the most common bands, ideally is suited for modern long-range air surveillance radars. Despite being long-range signal, it is limited at low altitude due to the radar horizon. These radars operate with a relatively large, slowly rotating antenna. Think L for large. The S-band radar is a much shorter wavelength and is better for special applications and mid to long-range detection. It is used more for surveillance as it provides better coverage and fidelity. However, at this range, atmospheric attenuation is starting to affect the signal, and much more power is required to achieve a long range. Commonly used in airport surveillance radar, long-range weather radar, and marine radars. Also weapon tracking. The C-band, or Charlie band, is used by battlefield radars with short and medium range. The antennae are small enough to be quickly installed and allow high precision required for fire control. Weather affects this signal quite a lot. The naughty band, or the X band, this frequency is mainly used for maritime navigation radar systems and weapon guidance. It can detect smaller objects due to its sensitivity. High resolution allows for accurate target identification. It's small, cheap, and has a fast scan rate. It offers decent range for applications with decent precision. A vessel may carry many of these systems to increase precision, or as a redundancy. It is the most commonly used band for marine navigation. The Ku band, or the Ku band, is similar to the X band in use, functionality, etc. It's just got a slightly higher frequency, and it's really just not as fun as the X band. The K band is unable to achieve long range at all. It offers sufficient resolution to see contours on a target and offers excellent ranging ability. It's a short range, fast response radar. This band is the one that catches you speeding on the highway. A common trend is that as you increase the frequency of the wave, the size of the antennae decreases along with the signal's range and resistance to weather. Although a radar's strength is still determined by the power supplied to it, so a high frequency radar with a lot of size and power behind it may have a larger than expected range. Like with visual ID, radar is also affected by the curvature of the Earth, and thus no matter how long range a system is, at sea level it is still limited by physics. A radar signal at long range has areas where it has clear sight, an area where the signal is disrupted by the horizon or terrain such as mountains, and weather conditions. This is called the shadow zone. This area is prone to clutter and inaccurate readings. And finally, there is a blind spot where the signal cannot reach. Some weapons such as Harpoon use this effect to decrease their chance of interception. Some systems can see over the horizon by bouncing the signal, but the easiest way to overcome the radar horizon is to elevate the system to extend the horizon. And so, airborne systems again are crucial to proper fleet defense, which is why the AWACS is such an important tool. In the absence of such an aircraft, small rotary wing or fixed wing units can be used in their stead. Finally, units can use jammers, both offensively and defensively, to fill a particular band with noise, clutter, or to modulate false readings that suppress a weapon's ability to scan, track, and identify, as well as pushing back the effective range of an enemy's radar system. Chaff decoys can be used to create ghosts for the radar to track, or obscure a ship's radar cross-section. Maintaining and operating varied assortments of radar systems is the key to having correct intel at all times. And finally, the last sense is electronic support measure. Remember that analogy regarding active sonar, where I likened it to screaming in a dark forest? Well, using radar to actively search for targets is quite literally taking a high-powered searchlight and using that to look around the same forest. As you sweep the light around, you're able to slowly piece together a picture of the surroundings. And depending on your flashlight's strength and wavelength, this might be a high-res image or a grainy, blobby mess. Whatever the case, everything in the forest just saw your flashing light like a beacon in the dark. And now they know you're there. Sometimes it's just better to listen, and that's what ESM is. It's a series of receivers that specifically look for these flashes of energy. It's able to detect emissions across any band, and it will alert you to the general direction, strength, and type of signal. If you listen long enough, you may be able to determine the specific radar set being used. With some vessels having unique radar combinations, it's possible to identify a target on its signal alone. Some aircraft are fitted with radar warning receivers that alert the user when a specific band is actively painting their receiver. And finally, if the enemy maintains strict emission controls, then this method will yield 0 results. But that's why it's so important to know your radar bands, because if your ESM detects a particular band, if you don't know what that means, you could be painted with as many Soviet anti-ship missiles as they can throw at you. You will certainly be fighting in the shade. So with this all in mind, it's impossible to understate just how important ELINT, or electronic intelligence, is in this context. Emissions control is an absolute necessity, and understanding when and where to use your radar or your flashlight is vital. Never just leave it on unless you are certain you have superiority sensor-wise or you are unlikely to be attacked. There is a fifth and somewhat controversial method that is likely to get you in lots of trouble with your commanding officer or even your president. That is the manual method. And this relies heavily on personal knowledge, intuition, balls, and luck to pull off correctly. By taking all available information and using your map tools to mark, track, plot, and estimate courses for a contact, an informed commander can decide to designate a track as hostile, neutral, or friendly, and launch weapons based purely on instinct or desire, usually a direct contravention of the rules of engagement. An example of this would be 3 airborne targets are detected at 90 nautical miles heading towards you in a close formation traveling at 700 knots. Aircraft are descending from 10,000 feet through bad weather in what appears to be an attack profile. Ship issues an IFF challenge with no reply. Ship issues a challenge on civilian channels, no reply. Ship opens fire. Oops, it was an airliner, ascending from a regional airport through a rain squall on a cleared flight path. You trusted your men and what they had to say. You were wrong. You should have trusted your senses. In that case, you would light him up with everything you've got and try to ascertain as to his true intentions. Sometimes intuition pays off, most of the time it doesn't. When we pack all that together, acoustics, visual, radar, and ESM, ideally you are using all of these methods to paint an accurate picture of the battle space and then steering the situation to your benefit. Using these systems to detect your enemy as well as minimize how much information you are giving away is crucial to success. Now I'm going to give you a random assortment of tips that I have come up with over in my years of experience, and these are: always keep elements that are actively using sensors away from the main body of your fleet, but still under the protection of anti-missile systems or air defense. Aircraft are the best option for accurate, long-range scanning with radar. They separate the danger from your fleet, and they can rapidly change position to provide better coverage. Some are equipped with jammers that will help you suppress enemy sensors and leverage movement. Some radar are more capable than others. Use the ship with the best sensors for the required task. An example of this would be to use an Aegis-equipped ship as your anti-air and point defense director for a battle group. SEAD missions, or suppression of air defense missions, are extremely important and still apply at a naval level. Some weapons are designed to home in on radar emissions and destroy the emitter. This is extremely effective against warships with strong sensor suites. A warship and its escorts can be blinded by weapons like the Shrike, crippling vital sensors that can shut down entire systems or force a ship to revert to manual gunnery. Timing this strike with anti-ship missiles can defeat entire defense networks in one blow. Some radar are air and surface search combined. Usually, performance is average compared to a specialized system. Radar horizon applies to aircraft. When using an AWACS, the altitude should be determined by your required radar range. There is absolutely no point loitering at maximum 30,000 feet when you only want to survey 150 nautical miles. High altitude makes your aircraft highly visible and leaves you open to interception by fighter or long-range SAMs, where missiles can travel extremely long range in the high altitudes. Conversely, choppers and smaller warships can hide below the radar horizon and sneak close to unleash their weapons. Choppers are fantastic for popping up to altitude, scanning, and then repositioning. I'm not sure of what context chaff is modeled in game, but theoretically you should be able to use choppers to drop chaff clouds to set up radar decoys so that it appears that your fleet is popping up all over the place. And I would really like to test that out and see if it works, because it's going to be a beautiful tactic. Mwah. Similar to vision, radar is distorted and or blocked by terrain. So you can use land masses and natural terrain and inlets to hide from sensors. And this is especially useful in fast attack craft, torpedo boats. You need to use the lay of the land and the littoral zone to maximize your stealth. Aircraft can lose radar lock at long range by diving and trying to get under the horizon. The closer you are, the harder and deeper you have to dive to escape a radar lock. Passive and active sonar is affected by sea state, running speed of the ship, so slow down or kill your engines to increase your hearing ability. This is known as sprint and drift. Slow down, stop, kill engines, listen, hit full speed, move position. Some ships are equipped with towed arrays which remove the engine noise from the equation and allow dipping below the layer to listen for sound in the deep sound channel. Sea state and running speed heavily affect accuracy of gunnery and in addition. Slow down your ship and improve your accuracy. A warship usually increases its solution as it spends time firing. Keeping ships close together can help mask individual identity, but be warned that missiles and torpedoes that have been defeated by countermeasures can reacquire new targets, and they like to go for the juiciest radar cross-section. Some weapons will not function without a fire control radar activated. Others will have their performance drastically improved by switching on those systems. The layer is not soundproof. Think of it as a filter. It allows leeway, but it does not allow stupidity. The enemy will still hear you through the layer, you just have a little bit of distortion. Subs can use the layer to mask the sound of torpedo launch, as long as the torpedo can be launched from such a depth. Only some torpedoes can do this. Your vessel's sound can be masked by placing yourself on the other side of a loud object between your enemy, like a civilian tanker. If you hide behind one, there's a good chance you will muffle your own noise. Try to keep ships that are listening for underwater threats away from other ships and local traffic if possible. Wake homing torpedoes, fired from below the layer, are silent and deadly, and the only way to avoid being tracked is to kill the engines and stop dead, or designate a plane guard behind key vessels to take one for the team. Missiles and torpedoes you don't know about will kill you. Sea skimming missiles are hard to detect due to their radar horizon, and airborne asset is required to detect and track them from extended range. The same applies for torpedoes. If you have no ships with passive ability to listen, or they're all running at maximum speed and not paying attention, the invisible torpedo will get you. Jamming enemy fire control radars will decrease the weapon range or force a missile to lose guidance. But once the onboard homing is active on said missile, offensive and defensive jammers can still overcome a missile's guidance. Couple that with decoys and seawiz, a prepared vessel can survive a lot. An unprepared vessel can be sunk in one hit. Know your doctrine. Depending on your nation played, you will have strengths and weaknesses. For instance, Soviet surface doctrine is all about the alpha strike and hitting first from long range, using a variety of multi-purpose or specialized missiles from a variety of launch platforms. They have many varieties of SAM, and their CWIS is all about volume over accuracy. Or they use mass attacks of fast attack craft to launch overwhelming strikes from sheltered coastal positions. Choose your flavor. They didn't really have the numbers to field crazy blue water fleet, but they certainly had the fast attack craft to do said tactics. NATO is all about sensor superiority, stealth, and air power. They are disadvantaged range-wise in terms of missiles, but they have the advantage in the air. NATO ships generally perform well as part of a whole and not so well as a single unit. They complement each other with standardized systems which are often integrated from the drawing board and not just whacked on. Most NATO warships have some form of anti-submarine warfare capability, whether that be through their aircraft or their systems. Players that leverage their air power will always know where the enemy's surface fleet is, and they'll be able to blind them and strike at their leisure. The hardest part will be trying to stay quiet so you don't have to fight in the Soviet shade. And so finally, we're going to sum all of that knowledge and just cram it into one paragraph. And that is Ty's basic rules for sea power. Number 1, be patient. Number 2, don't be where the danger is. And if you have to be where the danger is, don't be detected. If you have to be detected, jam them. And if you can't jam them, try not to be identified. If that doesn't work, don't let them track you. And if that doesn't work, don't let them shoot at you. And if they shoot at you, face them. And if they shoot at you, face the danger with your eyes and ears open and on. Manually control your ships when they're in danger, because oversaturation will kill you. Don't lose a ship in combat with all of its ammunition still on board. If it's going down, fire everything. Lastly, don't die. And if you have to die, make sure it was worth it. I'm Commander Tyrael. These were my tips for sea power and ID of enemy warships. If you enjoyed the content, hit like, hit subscribe. A little bit basic on the video side of things, but I really wanted to concentrate on the details. If you enjoyed the content, I will see you next time. See you later to all the Richards out there.